चैतन्यमयी सत्यमयी परमे परमोच्च प्रभु सत्यं नित्यत्वमेव केवलम् अनुवर्तामहे सत्यम् अनुजीवं केवलम् शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। O peace, come manifest. Good morning, welcome all of you. Today we are going to have a discussion on spy stories, well related to, better related to Sri Aurobindo's Pondicherry, initial Pondicherry life. As we know, British government was spying after Sri Aurobindo. They considered Sri Aurobindo as the most dangerous man for them. When he reached Pondicherry and stayed in the Shankar Chetty's house in Pondicherry, that time they could be able to know. They thought this British government, they are providing, this French government, because Pondicherry was then under the French management. They felt this Pondicherry government is providing all pistols, all documents, all instruction, all guidelines to these revolutionaries. For that only, they tried to spy against them and to get them arrested and to possess them, to take into their control, so that Sri Aurobindo will come to their grip. There is actually they have planned. There are conspiracies. We have seen they have conspired three conspiracies against Sri Aurobindo, but actually after all were foiled. So these conspiracies we are going to take one by one. Conspiracy 1, conspiracy 2, and conspiracy 3. These are known, entire three are coming under one banner, that is actually known as spy stories. Today we are going to focus on the spy story 1. Before going to this story, I will say little focus on the initial moment before Sri Aurobindo came to Pondicherry. In Tiruchirappalli, we know one yogi was there, famous yogi was there. His name is Nagai Japatta. So he had also many disciples. He was a very renowned rishi yogi at that time. When it is in near Trichy, when he was sitting on his deathbed, his disciples came and asked. And the major name of his entire disciples come as Zamindar KVR Iyengar. At the deathbed, Mr. Iyengar asked this yogi. This man asked his master, to whom should we go ask for the spiritual guidance in this future? At present, we are better guided under you. After some time, after you are dead and gone, after your departure, who will be there to provide the spiritual guidance to you, to all of us all? Then this Guru, Nagai Japatta, remained silent for a while. He went into trance and said that a Mahayogi from the north, it is known as Uttar Yogi. Uttar means north. North Yogi is coming to help, and you could take the help from him. But naturally it is gloomy. How shall they will be understand from north to south? So many people are there. How they will be in a position to under? But as many yogis are constantly went from north to south. So how this could? The problem is that how to recognize, how to know who is there. Then this Guru Nagai Japatta gave 2 hints. Number 1, to recognize the northbound yogi, how to recognize, how to know he is the perfect man who can guide their disciples, as planned by Mr. Iyengar, the Zamindar of that time, the area. Number one, indication number 1, he would come to the south seeking refuge. Seeking refuge, this great yogi will come from the north, number 1 indication. Number 2, he would be known by 3 sayings. He would be famous for saying 3 sayings. Probably these 2 are satisfied when it was found that Sri Aurobindo has come to South India, especially to Pondicherry, being directed from the within because it is a French colony. He can live there safe. He started from Chandannagar and reached here in Pondicherry, and seeking the refuge, and he was from north. Second one, he would be known by three sayings. His three sayings mostly it indicates his three madnesses. Already we have discussed in our initial topics. We have discussed three madnesses of Sri Aurobindo, as he had spoken, narrated in a letter to Mrinalini Devi. This letter, we have known. So this letter had been produced in the court in his trial, that would thus be been made public. This in the court, it was actually produced after this court's producer after this was produced in the court, it was made public. So Sri Aurobindo was found as a North Yogi, Uttar Yogi. He was identified. He is no one but Sri Aurobindo. He came here seeking refuge in Pondicherry. So after a little bit is there, it was this Iyengar, this Jamindar, who was asking his guru about the guru who will guide them in the spiritual endeavor. He at his own cost the little book known as Yogic Sadhana, which Sri Aurobindo had received while experimenting with the automatic writings. He had not really written the book of himself, but got the book, and so later stopped its circulation. It was published by Mr. K.V.R. Iyengar. Now it's time for us to go for the life in Pondicherry, hardship, then we'll go for conspiracy number one. Sri Aurobindo with the young companions had to face hardships while in Pondicherry. Practically, they had little or practically no money at all. They are something like leading one moneyless, penniless life, and almost practically without money, penniless. They lived in a small room with hardly any furniture, slept on the floor. There was no furniture, no accommodation, hardly slept on the floor. Sri Aurobindo on a thin bedding and others on straw mats. This was the Pondicherry life they spent. Very little to eat, difficult even to send to money. Quite dangerous for them in that time because they were all revolutionary leaders unable to get the money. Indian police and CID men for years were together behind them to follow their activities in Pondicherry by the British government because they would be unable, they can't believe Sri Aurobindo at all. They know he is the most dangerous man in all India, they know. Though they thought that yoga and religion were mere tricks. Yoga and religion, you are more tricks, but they will accelerate their revolutionary activities there, being provided by all bombs, pistols, instructions, plans by the government of Pondicherry from Pondicherry itself. So many spies were following them. They were kept behind them to follow their footsteps, what they are doing and how they will go bring their possession to bring out of Pondicherry. It was going. So the stories we are going to discuss today is spy stories, conspiracy number one. There, Sri Aurobindo writes to himself, there are at last three spy stories of these early days. Initially, early days, we can find three spy stories. The British government had said his spies everywhere. Everywhere you see there were spies, most entertained, mostly they were actually appointed by the British government in Madras. Madras was the road to Pondicherry. This was the only route to go to Pondicherry. It was Madras. Then Madras, now itself it has been changed to Chennai. So, and in the town, plain clothes men of CID with civil dress. We know civil dress, they were plain clothes men of CID. Pondicherry in those days were full of local gundas. In that time, now itself it is a spiritual heaven, but then it was packed with with all local gundas. The spirit shows that time the CIDs were in plain clothes, they were moving and they were in contact, in touch with the local gundas of the Pondicherry. And especially during the political election campaigns, anarchy reigned over the place. There was actually political agitations were there, political election campaigns were there. That time normally also we are facing, that time that it was severe, but now itself it is a very peaceful area. There is no more turmoil because government is very conscious. It is a spiritual hub of the world. People from all over the world they are coming, and it is unnecessary to speak that throughout the entire gods and goddesses they are also coming during their leisure hour and during the night to have a darshan and blessing from the Divine Mother and Sri Aurobindo. There was a rioting and murder. Everything things were going on. Rioting, murder, from political campaign, Gundaism, everything was going. Blood flowed freely. Everywhere you see, there was only the touch of blood. There was a river of blood. It was during such a campaign, that the British tried one of their worst moves. British tried to have a conspiracy to catch Sri Aurobindo and his men up, so that they will come to their possession. They may be encaged or they may be stayed in the jail somewhere. The spies conspired with a local political leader who was influential. There was an influential leader in the Pondicherry. They were actually conspired with the British people. These British CID and British people, Indian police, etc. They conspired with the local political leader who was an influential man that time, and had some of the gundas in his pay. Naturally, the leader who he was serving, he was keeping some gundas with his payment and all. These people they conspired with this political leader and his gundas for their own job, to carry up Sri Aurobindo from the limits of French India, that Pondicherry, that periphery, out of that periphery, how to get. For that they conspired with that local this political leader and his gundas were conspired indirectly, so that they could be immediately arrested by the British people. They can't rush into the French territory. Once Sri Aurobindo is coming out of this French territory, naturally they will be in a position, they have got the freedom. It is their arena and their area. They will be in a position to arrest him, and they will be trumped up the charge. They will gather up the charge. Sri Aurobindo will be encaged. It was their idea. Sri Aurobindo's young comrade in arms, some beautiful line, comrade in arms. They were also having the arms, commanders in arms. All were young. Sri Aurobindo's young commander in arms got wind of this plan. They could be able to know this has been conspired. This is the idea. This government is trying to catch hold of us. They want to to arrest us and to take into their hold. So this local election, that political leader has been conspired upon, and these gundas are with them. So, arming themselves with acid bottles, sat up the whole night. They awaited that the election campaign time. These young gundas, these young armed people around Sri Aurobindo, they were ready with the acid bottles, sat up the whole night. They did not take rest. They were awaiting what will happen, anything at any moment, to welcome the kidnappers, but nobody came. What happened? Why they were stopped? Why did not come to Sri Aurobindo to catch him up? The problem was there. On that very day, most strangely, Sri Aurobindo speaks, most strangely, on that very day, what happened? Against this very leader who was conspired upon, the very leader, a warrant of arrest has been issued by the opposite political party. A warrant order of arrest was issued against this political leader who was in conspiring against Sri Aurobindo with British people. He was actually, what happened? He had to run away from Pondicherry. He had to leave Pondicherry and go to Madras. Then the marvelous thing, what marvelous, the way of this providence. This is the God's will, divine will, we can imagine. Thank you, Vande Mataram.